Milwaukee hasn't been the most welcoming city in America this week, after yet another citizen was shot by a police officer on duty, sparking heated riots throughout the weekend. Janice, has the public gone too far in response to events like this, or is this just simply civil disobedience?
I think there needs to be a balance, and I think that's what we're searching for right now. Because I think it's being amplified by how certain media sources and governments reacting to it, and magnifying, amplifying it instead of trying to figure out how do we bring about peace from a community perspective.
Okay. So the reports that I've read are saying that the young man that was shot, he had a gun in his hands. I mean, at that point, I believe that is probably justified for the police to shoot him because he is an imminent threat to their safety or other safety. Would you two?
Well, I think what you're saying is very true, and the problem, and one of the reasons you find so many protests and so many incidents is the lack of adultship and leadership across the country. This isn't just a Milwaukee issue. This is an issue of anger in the political campaign. It's an issue of both houses of Congress unable to come together, sit down in a civil manner. It's people yelling at each other. It's people calling each other names. If your children in a home, if the parents is out there drinking, using drugs, don't have a job, what do you think the kids are going to do? So what's happening now with all the turmoil across the country, until that civility starts, you're going to have riots. I was in the riots in 1968 in Baltimore City. I was in the riots in 1964 in Cambridge, Maryland. There's nothing different now. The police and the folks, H. Rap Brown, Gloria Richardson at the time, and the problems that they created and the civil disobedience, here we go all these years later, and nothing has changed. So how do we change? I think Janice hit the nail right on the head. There's got to be a point, instead of all the arguing and everything, you come together and figure out, how do we make this happen? How do we get back to civil discourse?
And I think that's what America really needs right now, is they need somebody, they need a group of people, they need a task force that's going to step up and say, it's truly about making peace.
Right.
Like, instead of being a peacekeeper, it's truly about making peace. It's how do we get everybody to the table and have a conversation about what are your grievances, what are your issues. I mean, we're back to arbitration, we're back to negotiation. You know, it's back to labor versus management, but it's the same conversation of sitting down and actually truly listening to what's going on. A friend of mine is actually the brother of the mayor of Atlanta. And he was telling me the story the other day where Black Lives Matter walked in, he had a conversation with them and sat down and truly listened to them and had a conversation about what they were doing and what they wanted. And he said, okay, you can have your presentations, your whatever you're doing, that's okay, or like you're fine, whatever. And then, but his point was, you're not going to you're not going to block the highways, you're not going to block the interstates, because we need for our first responders, our fire trucks, our ambulances, all of that medical personnel to be able to get to people in need.
Right.
So protecting the safety of the city is saying you're allowed to express your grievances and your issues in the fashion that you want to, but we have to have boundaries where certain things aren't allowed because of the safety of the individual, so that if somebody needs medical treatment, emergency response, they're able to get there. And they were happy and they were fine with that. And the point was, he took the time to sit with them and have a conversation.
Right.
And truly listen to them so that they felt like they were being heard.
So on, the other side of the coin on that, though, is, so I haven't really heard much about Black Lives Matter in Atlanta because they weren't blocking the highways. So is it a matter of, hey, the only way we can get attention to our issue is we have to do extreme civil disobedience such as blocking the highway? Or do you think that if we just kind of toned it down across the nation, that maybe the media wouldn't just focus on, hey, they blocked a train track, or hey, they blocked a highway, and actually focus a little bit more on the underlying issues? Or do you think the media is still going to just blow it out of proportion anyway?
Well, don't forget the media is a First Amendment right. You like a Second Amendment right, so do I, but also like First Amendment right. And I think people have the right to have
Freedom of
discourse.
press.
And in this particular instance, when we wait till there's a problem before we sit down.
Right.
I grew up in the 60s. And in the 60s, there was a lot of civil disobedience because of Vietnam. And they got people's attention by marches, by peaceful marches, but there was little pockets of disturbance and riots within those civil disobediences in the 60s. But it took all that period of time to finally end the Vietnam War. I mean, I listened to some of the work. I never listened to Bob Dylan, but I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum yesterday in Cleveland, and I listened to some of Bob Dylan's songs, actually listened to his words, and I thought, why didn't I listen to those words before? I was a critical person of Bob Dylan, but I listened to some of the things he said, and some of the things he said in his words made so much sense. But the civil discourse and disobedience that we have in the country is because people can't sit down anymore. When you have the examples of running the country acting like children, how do you expect the people in the country to have civil obedience?
I absolutely agree. I couldn't agree more.
We're back to needing respect.
Yeah.
What the world needs now is respect. We've lost the fact of you are courteous and well-mannered and respectful of those around you. That if you walk by somebody and you invade their space in order to get around them, you say, excuse me, or you
Right.
apologize for something, or just in what you're doing, you respect them. And, that's something that's a rarity to find these days. And I think that is one of the root causes of all this unrest right now.
Reminds me of a song. It was sung by Aretha Franklin. Respect.
And written by a man.
Yes. And maybe
Can't remember
Aretha
who.
Franklin that song could be used to bring back, Janice, what you talk about is respect on how this thing could come together in a positive way throughout the entire country. It's going to take blacks, whites, Hispanics. It's going to take everybody to help solve this issue.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Next up on the flip side, our panel weighs in on the presidential election. Stay tuned.